The rain fell like judgment on the backstreets of Gangnam, turning the narrow alleyways into rivers of shadow and reflected neon. 3 black Mercedes sedans tore through the downpour, their engines screaming against the night. The city's famous lights blurred past, distorted by water and speed, but the men inside the vehicles weren't sightseeing. They were running or trying to. Then came the explosion. The lead vehicle flipped into the air, a grotesque ballet of twisted metal and shattered glass, before crashing into a convenience store with a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of Seoul. Alarms screamed into the wet darkness. Glass rained down like jagged tears. From the rooftops, heavily armed men descended on tactical ropes, their movements synchronized and deadly. Automatic weapons opened fire, stitching lines of destruction across the asphalt. The bodyguards in the second vehicle scrambled out, returning fire with desperate precision, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. 2 fell, then 3. Their bodies crumpled into the growing puddles of rain and blood. The middle vehicle sat trapped between burning wreckage and advancing attackers, a cage of steel and flame. Inside, Kwon Tae-soo remained perfectly still. His Armani suit was immaculate, untouched by the chaos outside. His face betrayed nothing. Through the bullet-cracked window, he watched his men fall, and he did not flinch. This was not his first ambush. It would not be his last. His security chief, bleeding from a shoulder wound, yanked open the driver's door. "Sir, we need to run, now." Kwon Tae-soo pulled a pistol from his jacket, his movements calm and deliberate. He had no intention of running. He had built his empire on the principle that fear was a choice, and he had stopped choosing it decades ago. But then the passenger door opened. The woman he had hired 2 months ago stepped out into the rain. The one with trembling hands during the interview. The one who had begged for the job with tears in her eyes, explaining that she needed to feed her child. The one everyone in his organization called the charity case, the struggling single mother he had taken pity on. In her hand, she clutched a knife, not a military weapon, not even a proper combat blade. Just a simple kitchen knife she had grabbed from the break room. The attackers left. One of them shouted something crude in Korean, mocking her bravery. "Look, she brought a butter knife to a gunfight." Then she moved, and the laughter died. She did not move like a frightened mother. She did not move like a victim. She moved like something ancient and merciless, like death given human form. One attacker fell with the knife buried in his throat before his finger could even brush the trigger. She used his collapsing body as a shield, spinning with impossible grace, and disarmed his partner with a wrist snap that echoed like a gunshot through the alley. The weapon now in her hands fired 3 rounds in rapid succession. 3 bodies dropped, perfect shots, center mass. The remaining attackers hesitated, their training screaming at them to advance, their instincts screaming at them to flee. She gave them no time to decide. She grabbed a fallen rifle, the movement so fluid it seemed choreographed, for more rounds, for more bodies. The tactical team that had planned this ambush trained killers from a rival syndicate had not planned for her. The rain continued to fall as she stood among the bodies, her face utterly blank, her breath completely steady. She walked back to the Mafia boss's vehicle, opened the back door, and extended her hand to him. "We need to leave, Mr. Kwon." He stared at her, this woman he had hired out of pity, the struggling mother who had looked so small and broken in his office. For the first time in 20 years, Kwon Tae-soo felt something he had long forgotten. Fear. Not of the enemy who had just tried to kill him. Of her. The billionaire stared at the woman he thought he was saving. In that moment, he realized he had just uncovered the most dangerous secret of his entire life. 3 months earlier, the job center in Seoul was a gray monument to human desperation. Rows of mismatched chairs filled the modest lobby, where people clutched worn resumes and stared at the doors with hollow eyes, hoping for a chance that might never come. In the corner, holding a small boy's hand, sat Ifeoma. Her blouse was faded, her shoes were worn, and her face carried the particular exhaustion of someone who had not slept properly in years. But her posture was strange to straight to alert. Her eyes never stopped moving, cataloging exits, faces, potential threats. A habit she could not break, even after all these years of trying to be ordinary. Her son, Chidi, tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, my stomach hurts." She knelt immediately, her expression shifting to pure focus. "What kind of hurt?" "Sharp though. Just hungry." Her face softened and she pulled him close, whispering against his hair, "Soon, baby. Mama, we'll find something soon." A harried clerk emerged from an office and called her name. "Ifeoma?" She rose quickly, smoothing her skirt. "Yes, here." The clerk looked her up and down with the casual cruelty of someone who had seen too many desperate people to care anymore. Then he glanced at her resume. This says you have a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Lagos. Yes. And you speak Korean fluently. Yes. I studied in Seoul for 2 years as an exchange student. The clerk frowned. But your references, they're all from Nigeria. Nothing local. No Korean employment history. I had to leave quickly. A family emergency. And the gap in your employment. 5 years. You've worked nowhere in the past 5 years? Ifeoma's jaw tightened, a micro-expression that vanished in an instant. I was taking care of my son. The clerk looked at the child, then back at her. The judgment in his eyes was unmistakable. We'll call you. They never called. Kwon Tae-soo sat at the head of a long glass conference table in Kwon Corporation's headquarters. Around him sat his security chief, Park Jin-ho, his legal advisor, and his operations manager. Kwon Corporation was the legitimate face of his empire: real estate, logistics, import-export, the businesses that washed his money clean. The operations manager slid a photograph across the table. Sir, we've reviewed applications for the office assistant position. Kwon didn't look at it. He was staring at his phone, where security footage from the previous night's shipment played in silent loops. What are the options? We had 100 applicants. We narrowed it down to 3. Kwon finally looked up. Is the third one the woman from the job center? The manager blinked, clearly startled. How did you know, sir? I have my ways. He lifted the photograph. It was Ifeoma, holding Chitty's hand, exiting the job center. But something caught his eye in the background. A man in a cap stood still, watching it carefully. Kwon studied the photo for a long moment. Give me a full background check. Deep, Interpol deep. Sir, just do it. And bring her in for an interview. Ifeoma sat across from Kwon Tae-soo in the interview room, her fingers fidgeting in her lap. It looked natural. Kwon noted the nervous energy of a desperate woman. But something about it felt deliberate, calculated. A mask? He said nothing, just watched. She broke the silence first. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Kwon. I know there were many applicants. You have no references. She faltered. I explained. A family emergency. Yes. What emergency? Silence. She didn't answer. Kwon leaned forward, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. I'm offering you a job that pays 3 times the market rate. The position is in my private office. You'll see things, hear things. I need to trust you. She met his eyes. I am a good person, Mr. Kwon. I've made mistakes. But I've paid for them. Everyone has. He slid a piece of paper toward her. It was a photograph, grainy and taken from a distance. It showed Ifeoma in the job center lobby, but in this image, her posture was completely different. She was not hunched or anxious. She was scanning the room with the alert precision of a professional. You notice I don't ask about the gap in your employment, he continued. Because that gap doesn't exist, does it? You work somewhere. Somewhere that taught you this. He tapped the photograph. Ifeoma's eyes flickered, and for just a moment, something dangerous surfaced. Then it was gone, replaced by practiced innocence. I worked as a night guard for a warehouse in Lagos. We had security threats. I learned to be careful. A night guard. Yes. Kwon studied her for a long moment, and then he smiled a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Interesting. We'll start you Monday. She blinked, genuinely caught off guard. Wait, that's it? That's it. You're hired. She hesitated, her guard dropping for just a second. I have a son. I need to know if. Bring him. There's a daycare in the building. I'll cover the fees. Ifeoma's eyes glistened with unexpected tears. For a moment, just a moment, the mask slipped entirely. She had not expected kindness. And that, Kwon realized, was the first genuine thing he had seen from her. The weeks that followed were quiet. Ifeoma worked in a corner of the office, answering calls, organizing files, making coffee. She was efficient, invisible, and utterly forgettable, but Kwon watched her. He noticed how she tracked the security guards during their rounds, not with her eyes, but with her ears. She knew their footsteps, their patterns, their schedules. She knew when they were off schedule. When the cleaning crew came, she was suddenly elsewhere, never cornered. When a strange car parked across the street, she opened the blinds just slightly, observed, then closed them. He said nothing. He took notes. The contempt from his inner circle was obvious. Park Jin-ho, the security chief, sneered at her constantly. Mr. Kwon, if you don't mind me asking, why did you hire the foreigner? She's clearly hiding something. She has no references, no history. She barely speaks Korean. She speaks it better than you, Park. Park flinched. Sir, I just mean she doesn't belong here. What use is a woman like that? Kwon looked through the glass wall at Ifeoma, who was comforting Chidi after his drawing had been torn. She knelt beside him, wiped his tears, reassured him with a tenderness that seemed completely at odds with the woman who had scanned the job center like a soldier. Sometimes, Kwon said slowly, the most useful people are the ones you underestimate. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came on an ordinary afternoon. Ifeoma picked up Chidi from school, and he ran to her clutching a drawing. Mama, I drew our house, the one with the big trees. She took the drawing, and her hands began to shake. The house with the big trees. The safe house in Lagos, the one they had had to burn. She knelt quickly, her voice low and urgent. Chidi, baby. Remember how we talked about not talking about? I know, Mama. I didn't say anything. I just drew it. She pulled him close, her heart pounding. Then she saw a vehicle approaching. Unmarked, black, deliberate. Her head snapped up, her hand reaching instinctively inside her jacket before she remembered there was nothing there. No weapon. She had left that life behind. The car passed without stopping. But she hadn't imagined the feeling of being watched, tracked, hunted. She looked around the street at familiar faces, strangers, children playing, and then she saw him. A man across the street, reading a newspaper. He wasn't looking at her, but something about him made her blood run cold. She knew that stance, that posture, that deliberate casualness. He was military, special forces. African or Middle Eastern, she couldn't tell from this distance. No, it couldn't be. She had disappeared. She was dead officially, her record sealed, her existence erased. If anyone was looking for her, she stopped walking. Mama, she forced a smile. It's nothing, baby. Come on, let's go home. That night, Kwon Tae-soo stared at his computer screen. An Interpol file, unofficial and off the books, was open before him. It was incomplete. Someone had tampered with it, redacting sections, blacking out text. But the name was there. Ifeoma. No picture. No records. Just a designation, high-value individual. Former asset. Status deceased. He scrolled further. A single line remained unredacted. Operative possesses advanced skills in counterintelligence, hand-to-hand combat, and tactical assassination. Kwon leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The woman who couldn't hurt a fly. The woman who flinched at loud noises. The woman who thanked him daily for giving her a chance. That woman was a killer. The door opened, and Ifeoma entered to collect the files for filing. She stopped when she saw his expression. Sir, are you all right? He looked at her, all innocence, all carefully constructed fear. I'm fine, he said. Go home, get some sleep. She nodded and left. Kwon looked back at the screen. He was a man who owned every room he entered, who controlled governments and cartels, who had killed with his bare hands. And yet he had just realized he didn't know who was in his building. Ifeoma wasn't just dangerous. She was dangerous in a way he couldn't predict. And people who were dangerous in unpredictable ways, they were the ones who ended empires. In her small apartment that night, Ifeoma sat in the darkness, staring at a photograph she kept hidden. It showed a woman in military fatigues, standing with a team of men in a desert location. She was smiling, young and invincible. In the background, a burnt-out convoy smoldered. The mission that had broken her. She flipped the photo over. On the back, written in faded ink, the red team, never forget. She put the photograph away and took out a second one, this one from years later. A handsome man with kind eyes, holding a baby, Chidi. She traced the man's face with her finger. I'm sorry, she whispered. I tried. I really tried to be normal. Her phone buzzed. She froze. That phone was supposed to be dead, no SIM card, no connection. She used it only as a clock. But it was buzzing with an incoming message from an unknown number. We know you're alive, Ifeoma. The red team sends its regards. Her blood turned to ice. The red team, her team, the people who had betrayed her, left her for dead. It was supposed to be over. She typed back with trembling fingers. Who is this? The reply came instantly. You'll find out soon enough. Another message appeared, this time, a photograph. It showed Chidi, walking home from school that afternoon. Ifeoma's vision went red. She stood, all pretense of fear gone. For the first time in 5 years, the mask was completely off. The attack came on a night when the rain fell like judgment. Ifeoma had been expecting it. She had been preparing for it, training for it, planning for it. But even she hadn't anticipated the scale of the assault. 40 heavily armed men, military-grade weapons, a helicopter circling overhead like a mechanical vulture. Kwon Tae-soo stood beside her at the command center, his face grim. You don't have to do this, he said. Yes, I do. Why? She turned to him, her eyes steady. Because I ran for 5 years. I let them believe I was dead. I let them believe they won. But they didn't win. I survived. My team's families survived. And the real mission is still alive. That's what they can't stand. The helicopter's spotlight swept across the compound and she pulled out a small device. This contains everything, every operation, every name, every murder. If I don't survive tonight, it goes to every major news outlet in the world. That's your leverage. That's my insurance. She handed it to him. Protect it. Protect Chidi. If I don't come back, you will. She smiled, and it was genuine. You know, for a mafia boss, you're not as bad as I thought. For an assassin, you're not as cold as I expected. Then the attack began. Gunfire erupted from every direction, the staccato rhythm of automatic weapons tearing through the night. The helicopter opened fire with its machine guns, bullets spanging off concrete and sending shards of debris flying through the air. Men screamed, chaos unfolded, and Ifeoma moved. She was a blur of lethal precision, a whirlwind of destruction. She grabbed weapons from fallen enemies, reloaded with impossible speed, and took out 3 attackers before they could even raise their rifles. Kwon watched her work, and he felt something he had never felt before: genuine awe. He had seen soldiers, seen professionals, but he had never seen anything like her. She eliminated the first wave 9 men, gone in less than 60 seconds. Then the helicopter launched a missile, and the building's roof exploded. Kwon was thrown to the ground, disoriented and bleeding from a gash on his forehead. As he struggled to rise, a man appeared above him, an older man with a scar across his left eye, cold and predatory. Kwon Tae-soo, the man said. You chose the wrong side. He raised his weapon. Stop. Ifeoma stood behind him, her own weapon aimed at his head. Ifeoma, the scarred man, smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You survived. You thought I wouldn't? I thought you learned your lesson. I learned something. I learned you can't trust anyone. That's a lesson I've known for decades. He moved faster than anyone could have anticipated, disarming Ifeoma in a single fluid motion and kicking her knee out from under her. She fell, but she didn't stay down. She grabbed his leg, swept his feet, and they both crashed to the ground. The fight that followed was brutal, relentless, and deeply personal, a dance of violence that had been 5 years in the making. They rolled through the debris, exchanging blows that would have killed ordinary men. You killed my team, Ifeoma snarled, slamming her fist into his jaw. They were expendable. They were my family. Family doesn't exist in this world. She pulled his head back, a knife at his throat. Chidi's mother was my family. She trusted me with her son. You tried to take him from me. I was trying to finish the job. Finishing the job means killing a child. Children don't matter. Children are the only thing that matters. She raised the knife to strike and then stopped. Kwon saw the conflict in her eyes, the war between her training and her humanity. Ifeoma. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to kill. Then don't. But if I don't, I'll handle it. He stepped forward, picking up her fallen weapon. But this time, you don't have to do it alone. She let the man go, and Kwon's men grabbed him, dragging him away. The scarred man was screaming, cursing, but Ifeoma didn't look back. She had made her choice. You've made a mistake. The man spat at her. You've chosen weakness. No, she said softly. I've chosen humanity. You wouldn't understand. The helicopter circled back, firing another missile. Kwon tackled Ifeoma, and they hit the ground together. The missile struck the building, but they were in the shadow of the blast, safe. She looked at him, breathing hard. You saved me. You saved me first? She laughed, a sound of pure relief. So we're even, for now. Morning came, soft and golden, streaming through the windows of Ifeoma's apartment. She sat at the small table with Chidi on her lap, eating breakfast. Simple, quiet, peaceful. Kwon had visited, bringing a briefcase full of money, documents, and new identities. You don't have to run anymore, he had said. I've made it so your records are erased. You're legally dead. A new identity, a new life. She had stared at the contents, her throat tight with emotion. Why would you do this for me? Because you reminded me what loyalty means. And what's that? Sacrifice, protection, love. He had looked at Chidi then, his expression softening. He's a good boy. You raised him well. Now, as Ifeoma watched her son eat his cereal, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. The running was over. The fear was gone. She was home. A week later, she walked through the courtyard of Kwon Corporation. The guards nodded as she passed. Park bowed, his expression genuinely respectful. Ms. Ifeoma, Park, thank you. For what? For showing us what real strength looks like. She smiled. You just had to look past the surface. I see it now. I won't forget. Kwon joined her, and they walked together through the sunlit courtyard. How does it feel, he asked. What? Being free. She thought about it for a moment. Strange. I've been running so long I don't know what to do with my hands. You'll learn. They stopped at the entrance to the building, and she turned to him. About your offer. I'll take it. The security position. Yes, but on one condition. Name it. I still have to pick up Chidi from school at 3. Every day. He laughed, a genuine, warm laugh that transformed his stern features. Deal. She extended her hand, and he shook it. Welcome to Kwon Corporation, Ms. Ifeoma. Thank you, Mr. Kwon. That night, she sat on her balcony, the lights of Seoul glittering below. Chidi slept peacefully inside, his small face relaxed and trusting. She pulled out the old photograph of the red team, of the people she had lost. I hope you're proud of me, she whispered to the night. I did it. I survived. And I found a reason to live. The moon rose over Seoul, casting silver light across the city. She tucked the photograph away and opened the envelope Kwon had given her. Inside was a photograph of her and Chidi, laughing and happy. Below it, a message in his handwriting. You were never broken. You were just waiting for someone to see your strength. Ifeoma closed her eyes, a single tear escaping down her cheek. She wasn't running anymore. She was home. In his office, Kwon Tae-soo watched the security footage from the courtyard. Ifeoma was playing with Chidi, chasing him through the sunshine, both of them shrieking with laughter. He smiled, a rare, genuine smile that reached his eyes. His phone buzzed. A text from Park. Sir, your orders? He typed back, protect her. No matter what. She's the most valuable person in this building. He put the phone down and looked at the footage again. She was everything he wasn't, compassionate, selfless, resilient. And she was the only person he had ever met who didn't want anything from him. The billionaire thought he was helping a struggling mom. But in the end, it was she who had saved him. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Your support means the world to us and helps us create more incredible stories for you.